Hello and welcome back to What Difference Does It Make, Danny? So I'm just gonna kind of continue where I left off. I don't really remember the faces, but that's okay. We're just gonna keep just going with it. The picnic was great. The mothers had held their meetings to decide what to bring, and they had all made a special effort for the food that was to be communal. The sandwiches were called heroes. French bread sliced long ways twice and pulled with mixtures like ham, egg, cheese, tomato, salami, all with lettuce and mayonnaise. Mouths had to open very wide to accommodate the hero sandwich, and no one who ate one could afford the luxury of dignity. For the more sedate, there were cold chicken legs and sausage rolls, hard-boiled eggs and salads in little plastic containers. The salads were popular with the teachers. "Don't like the salad? Never have," remarked one little girl complacently, her first crammed with the hero packed. With the hero packed with more salad her bite than she had ever experienced in her life. Her mother was about to point out when common sense came over her and she grinned instead. "That's right, love," she advised. "Stick to what you fancy." The teacher's contribution was ice cream and insulate containers. The children worried in case there wouldn't be enough to go around, but there was. Afterwards they played a bit more lazily now in the long overgrown parts of the park, while the adults slept blissfully under the trees, and mothers chatted idly to each other about how nice it would be to move out of the city and live somewhere like this. Danny, laying on his stomach, chewing a long stem of grass, and wondered if the lady had forgotten the secret she told him. At 2 o'clock they were told they could put on swimming gear, which they held with varying degrees of modesty. There was giggling, much hiding behind the tree trunks, and a lot of showing off when they had changed. Miss North called them together for another announcement, and Danny knew this was it. "We have a surprise event," said Miss North, looking around with a pleased expression on her face, and she paused for a dramatic effect. "It's to be the annual event. That's right. You have all behaved so well, we've been invited to come again." To her, this was clearly an important part of the announcement. "Other schools," she said darkly, "had not been invited back after their first visit. Naturally, the headmistress went on a bit about that, and how she was proud of them, while parents looked fondly at their children." Danny was more interested in the details of the special event, and finally Miss North got around to it. There was, she told them, a natural pool further up the river. Good swimmers, and good swimmers only, were invited to compete in races, and there would be a cup which the overall winner would keep for a year. That was a secret he had been told. Danny hoped the lady did not expect him to win, but he was very pleased to be good enough to take part. Would-be entrants were weeded out, and the gamer's master, who knew exactly what stage they had all reached, Wayne, who had failed his bronze, was furious, and Billy Caster couldn't even swim. "Silence in the public baths," protested Wayne. "With water wings? Next, please." Danny was one of the first to reach the pool, and the sight of it made him gasp because it was so beautiful. The public baths were going to seem a bit tame after this. The only way in was to dive. Someone had created a homemade board, which was really just a plank, and while some lined up on that, others launched themselves from the rocky sides in joyful chaos. It was clear and deep, and felt wetter, colder, fresher than any water they had ever been in. The games master had to blow himself her piece on his whistle before the pool was cleared so that the race could be organized. Danny swam underwater to the edge, then hauled himself out, shaking the hair that had plastered itself to his face, and waiting as he blinked for the eye smarting, which always followed a swim. It did not happen, and it took a few moments to work out why. No chlorine. As far as I can tell, that bit just means when your eyes turn red when you open them under a public pool. That thing. The games master was at his happiest, organizing heats in the pool this size. They were over quickly. He pitted girls against girls, boys against boys, then matched the winners by age. The possible permutation baffled most of the other teachers, but he reveled in complications. It had been said of him that he enjoyed working out the football timetables in great deal more than the actual games, and this ability was at full stretch now. He had brought the competitors to a final before his assistant had finished working out who should win against whom, and Danny's great pleasure, he had a place in it. It suddenly dawned on him he might even win. The best swimmer he was up against was a wiry girl named Kathy, and in great honesty Danny knew he would not normally beat her, but Kathy had run more races that day than Danny, and he had noticed she was tiring. He told himself not to count on it, but he thought he could do it. And he did. The screams of his classmates, echoed by the staff for everyone like Danny, drowned the umpire's whistle that could be heard as far as the lazy few who had stayed in the picnic ground. His mother, noted for her calm in a crisis, but who went to pieces in moments of joy, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, and the first, when she had got her breath, to congratulate him was Kathy. "You're a good winner too," smiled a lady who owned the park. Danny was shivering now with a towel around him, and she handed him a silver cup, which she promised to have engraved later. "And a good advertisement," she added. "For the school?" asked Danny uneasily. He never cared for that line of chat. "For epilepsy," said the lady, surprising him. "I'm very oppressed in epilepsy. That's why Miss North mentioned you to me. One of my own children has it, and I quite often give talks on the subject. I shall tell a lot of people about you if you don't mind." Danny didn't mind. He was longing to get away from the show, the cup to his friends. He'd had epilepsy for so long he hardly ever thought about it, but this was the first cup he'd ever won. Chapter 2. Time for backstories. Danny was 2 when he had a first convulsion. He was often asked by friends, who had never got so far in an outpatient's, what it had been like. Was it true it had been taken into an ambulance with its sirens on, and how long he had to stay in the hospital? It was certainly true about the ambulance, but to his regret, Danny did not remember much about the trips he'd made then. He did remember his hospital visits because he enjoyed them so much. He was first taken to casualty because his parents had no idea what was wrong with him. They'd been in bed asleep when they heard him cry out. They rushed to his bedroom to find him shuddering as if a giant hand was shaking him. Danny's mother could be forgiven for doing all the wrong things because she'd never seen a major fit before, and it can be quite alarming to someone who doesn't know how to cope. So she picked him up and hugged him while his father rang for an ambulance, and by the time Danny had recovered, he was in hospital. He had to make quite a few trips after that because occasionally, instead of having just one convulsion, Danny had several, and when that happened, he had to be given an injection to stop the attacks. His doctor suggested a spell in hospital so that tests could be done to find out why he was more liable than most people to have fits. Danny's mother began to prepare him for his stay away from home. She bought a book about children in hospital and read it to him every night. But she needn't have bothered. Danny liked what he had seen about hospitals. He couldn't wait to go. He liked what they had to eat in hospital, sausage, chips and ice cream, and he knew the nurses would give him tea, which he never had at home. His previous visits had seemed all too short to Danny. His mother, following the staff and nurses, led him to the ward, and Danny was shown his bed. It had a pull-up side like a cot, and Danny, who had been in a proper bed at home for months, did not think too highly of that. He was quite happy to climb on it until he noticed that the other cots in the bedroom all had children already in them. In the middle of the day. Danny jumped quickly down in case he was trapped and went to look at the other children. He felt sorry for them because he could see they were not really well enough to enjoy being in hospital. "He can have his nap now," suggested the nurses hopefully. "I'm afraid he's given up sleeping in the day," said Danny's mother. She sounded apologetic and the nurses certainly looked as though this was bad news. Danny was going to be his best to cheer up one little girl by rattling the bars of her cot and jumping up and down, making a chimpanzee face. She appreciated that, but the duty nurses didn't, and Danny was taken firmly to the vast toy-strewn playroom. "Here's Danny come to play with you," said the nurses brightly to the 3 or 4 other children in the room, as though he had been brought to hospital purely for their entertainment. They looked at him without interest and returned to their puzzles and bricks. A boy a little bigger than Danny pushed him, then stood back to see what would happen. Danny, delighted to have found a friend, pushed him back. They became known as the Terrible Twins. Those two, and they had a marvelous time. The nurses didn't. They were used to quiet, sick children. Danny and his new friend were much too lively. For the first day, they were content to ride the pedal car and the tricycle in the playroom, but the next day they had burst out into the corridors. They zoomed up and down, scaring the life out of the sister and drive-bombing the doctors. The other boy was in for test too, for some quite different condition, and the nurses began to welcome the times when the other was taken off to see a doctor. Danny too enjoyed these interludes. He had been quick to spot that there were always a bowl of sweets on the desk and rightly guessed they were for those who behaved well. Danny behaved very well. The only tests he found rather boring were the EEG, short for electroencephalogram, a machine which can measure brainwaves. If Danny had been older, he might have found that idea fascinating, but at 2 he had a half, he quickly lost interest in what was a long, tedious business. He had small discs attached to various parts of his head with glue and were told they were called electrodes. These were in turn attached by wires to the EEG recording machine, which scribbled inky graphs over the reams of paper while Danny looked at picture books, closed his eyes, watching flashing lights, and became so tired of the whole process he almost went to sleep. The EEG did not hurt, but removing the glue from his hair afterwards wasn't much fun. There were blood tests too. More than one doctor wanted a blood sample from Danny, and he had become quite conceited about his own bravery. He was in fact a courageous little boy, but the truth was that apart from a slight jab when the needle went in, these tests did not hurt much. I know I'm finishing it a bit early, but I'm going to leave it here. Hopefully you enjoyed. Like and waddle over to the subscribe button to become a hatchling, and hopefully I will see you in a wingspan. Oh my gosh. Bye.